Hello, Diane. I'm very happy to have you here. Welcome. And I'm very much looking forward
Thank
to
you.
interviewing you specifically about young plasma infusions. But before we get to that, maybe you give us a little bit of an introduction. Who are you? What are you doing? And what role do you see for yourself in the super longevity field?
My name is Diane Ginsberg. I am a board certified OB-GYN, and I am also board certified in anti-aging and regenerative medicine. And I guess, like most people, you get into anti-aging and regenerative medicine as you get older. I've delivered babies for 25 years. I have two kids with terrible dyslexia that functional medicine showed me how to affect their brain. My boys were very, very, very late talkers. My second one had no language until he was 5 years old. My old one wasn't much better. They told me the kids would never speak. And using the concept of functional health, my big one just graduated medical school and my little one's in graduate school. So I learned about neuroplasticity. We learned about what we can do to create health if we put enough of the pieces in the right place. And after 25 years of delivering babies, my population got older and women started to struggle with aging, especially once the Women's Health Initiative came out, right? Everybody said hormones were going to kill you. So in 2002. So now we've got this group of women that are miserable and don't feel good, and they're worried about, it's not even cosmetic. It's about my brain working so I don't get Alzheimer's. I don't want my muscle mass to fall apart. I want to make sure that I can be all I can be as long as I can be that. And as I started to research that, you look at different papers and things that are going on, and platelet-rich plasma people were using to rejuvenate joints. But the concept behind that was taking sort of older stuff out of somebody that was older and trying to spin out the best that's there. Well, the problem is that the blood proteins change, right? The inflammatory proteins go up. What I tell people is that balls roll downhill and cups of coffee get cold. So with aging, what starts to happen is everything starts to disperse. So we don't have those big molecules to heal us anymore. So we started to look at, well, if you find the right mix of the optimal big molecules that the body can't make anymore because things are headed a little bit downhill, no matter how healthy you try to be, you have to put the big molecules back. And that's when the idea that the perfect mixture was there was plasma. And it's very healthy for the younger kids to donate. So your optimal plasma proteins are between the ages of 18 and 24. And when the young kids donate, it sort of cleans out their system and they can rejuvenate their proteins well. So it really becomes beneficial to give and then beneficial to receive. And the rat studies started to show that Alzheimer problems in rats were reversed, and heart cells grew around the young plasma, and skin started to heal. So then the transition then went to, okay, maybe the brain inflammation becomes a problem with time. So we can put those molecules back in and brain inflammation will get better, or bones start to fall apart and we can improve that. And that's really what headed us initially down the Parkinson's, Alzheimer's study that I did, that said, okay, there's an inflammatory process, there's broken parts of the brain. If we put young factors back in, what will we see? And we actually saw significant improvement in our Parkinson's study, in our Parkinson's patients. So now the movement is, if we take out some old plasma and put in the young plasma, what are we going to start to see with longevity? If you take the old battery out of your car and put in a new battery, right, and take out the old gas tank and put in a new gas tank and put in some new wires, there's a lot of people driving around in beautiful 1930 Chevys and 1940, 50 Mustangs that are beautiful, and that will keep you healthy and well, long, hopefully past what the typical lifespan is now.
So, what have you seen over the last 12 months in your field? What are the latest developments, the latest discoveries that really can be leading the past into the future? And how do they really relate to our future? How can it change our future?
Well, so I think you're in a double edge with that, because I think our future has one problem where you've got an aging population, but you've got an aging sick population. And I don't think our kids can handle that. So if we create big pharma, oh, you have a problem, well, I'm going to put a drug on this, or I'm going to put a drug on that. Then what you're going to do is you're going to have an older population, and I'm 58, going to be 59. So 60s, 70s, I mean, that's an older population. But if those people are sick and they can't move and they don't feel good, it brings on more and more illnesses. And you're just not going to have the younger population that is going to be able to support that. So you're going to have a lot of older sick people. The second part of that is just long-term longevity. That there's so much exciting happening, and AI is changing so much, where there's going to be an interaction with really getting deeper into how we can understand cellular functioning, so we can create slower, I would say, cost of doing business, right? That's what life is. You live your life every day, and your body has a cost of doing business, and you want to increase the profit as much as possible to expand the life of the business. So what we're seeing more and more is that if you take older plasma out, so you take inflammation away, but you put young factors back in, you'll see changes that improve in the body. So for one example, one of the big issues that happens with aging, or a disease of aging, is heart disease, right? Atrial fibrillation, or the heart muscle gets weaker. So we have a patient that we took 2 liters of the old plasma out and infused young plasma into him. He's an 80-year-old man with atrial fibrillation and mild heart failure. Well, you can watch the markers of heart failure get better. You can follow it with blood. You can follow it with his echocardiogram. You can follow it with blood. Why? Because all those microproteins that he can't make anymore, now you put them back in. The heart doesn't care where they come from. It's like somebody that's hypothyroid. Their thyroid doesn't work, but you give them Synthroid, the system works fine. So here what we're finding is you're giving the heart back those proteins, and all of a sudden the pump was better, the efficiency of the system was better. So what we're really hoping to see in this process is maybe you do that every 4 months. Maybe you do it every 6 months. You take the old out, you put the young in, and now what you're doing is you're going to give a combination to this 80-year-old who wants to see his grandkids and enjoy his life. He'll have better quality. He won't have shortness of breath and heart failure problems. But on top of that, you're extending his longevity. And I think from a lack of disease state, when it comes to family history of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and all people are so afraid they're going to develop that, I think we hold off using the plasma on development of that, and people that are showing signs of it, we can hopefully reverse it.
Yeah. And like from your perspective, because we have been talking about young plasma infusions last year, or like over the last years, but like over the last 12 months, what was the one thing that really stood out that can really make a difference to super longevity?
Well, I think the number one thing that probably stood out is we're using it more on people. I think that everybody's been using the rats forever, and where you can't worry about super longevity, first of all, until you can test for it, right? So as a physician, right, I can test blood sugar, and I can test liver functions, and I can test day to day. So I think from an aspect of understanding pace of aging and the genes and the disease process that's coming, I think number one, over the last year, that's gotten better. So companies that are testing methylation, which look at your pace of aging, now you have a test, right? You can't do anything until you know what you're getting. So now what we're seeing, especially over the last year, is that one of the most reliable tests is what's called the Dunedin pace of aging. It was a longevity study they did with people over time. So they were able to follow their methylation parameters as they got older, along with their medical issues and their basic numbers. So now what we can do is you can plug each individual person into that timeline. So you can turn around and say, okay, I am at this pace of aging. So for me, example, my pace of aging, my Dunedin pace of aging is 0.7. So theoretically, right, I get 3 or 4 months a year free. Now, I may be a combination of genetics and diet and exercise where I age a little bit slower, but you're going to have somebody maybe where their pace of aging is going to be greater than 1, and that puts them at like a 50% risk of real problems in the next 7 years. Well, what we're seeing in the super longevity space is you do the plasma exchange with the young plasma, and now the Dunedin pace of aging goes from 1.1 down to 0.8. Or somebody that's aging, say, at 0.95. We had one lady who did a 2-liter plasma and she went down to 0.59, like she was lower than the scale. So that's the key, right? If you slow the aging that much, what you do is that's where you create super longevity. You know, I don't know until, and it may never happen, right? I always tell people that there's laws of physics. There's certain laws of the universe that the cells just can't break. So it may be there's just a certain amount with our own cells of what we can get with super longevity. But if you're creating this longevity we have now, it gives us time to come up with what kind of augmentation to the cells we can add that can really start to create changes in longevity.
Okay. And obviously, like this year's topic of Radfest is meet your future face to face. So what does that mean for your work, and why, should really attendees care about that, what you do and the whole meet face to face, meet your future face to face?
That's a really good question. And I've been thinking about that. But here's what I really think. The problem with most people is that if you go to your physician, you're not going to get any longevity education. It's not in the teaching. My son just graduated from medical school. They get you do your college, you do your medical school, and then you do your residency. And whether you become an orthopedic surgeon or an internist, or my son Andy's going to be an ER doc, everything you're going to get from your local physician is going to be how to put your arm back on if it falls off or you break it or something like that. You're not even preventative medicine. Preventative medicine, when you go to your internist, is going to be, let me do a CBC, a chemistry, a thyroid panel, a chest x-ray, and a urine analysis. That's not preventative medicine. Because if he says, oh, your liver functions are elevated, you've been sick for years. So in order to really say, hey, I want to take the bull by the horns, I want to know what I can do now at 59 years old so I can slow my rate of aging. I don't want to wait until I feel bad. You need to be immersed in it, because your internist is, or your other doc is going to look at you kind of like you're not sick. Why are you here? So at this meeting, this is going to be science meets practical things you can do. And for example, with the plasma, you'll learn, okay, of the people that got the plasma, what did they find? What did they do? What got better? How do I apply it to myself? And then what you'll also do is figure out how that fits for me, right? It's all about bio-individuality. So that'll work great for me because of my situation. And now here's, how do I make that happen? Where do I find that? Where do I have to fly to? Or what do I have to do? Whether it's in an IV, whether it's in a pill, whether it's a blue light, red light, whatever it is, you're going to be one-on-one with somebody that says, yeah, I know you feel good now, but you want to feel good at 80. And that's what you're going to get face to face. And you're not going to find it anywhere but in Radfest, because it's just not in the basic medical field. I see it even in the basic medical field with the young plasma. When I talk to the neurologist, I'm like, try it on your person. They have Parkinson's. What more do they have to lose? And they don't hear anything about it. So if you really want to step into the future and not get sick, this is the place to be.
Yeah. And you are obviously going to talk about young plasma infusion. So can you give us a really short sneak preview of what you're going to talk about?
Sure. So the biggest problem with young plasma is everybody's talking about, oh, is it safe? Or what kind of side effects? Or is it going to be a problem if I get it? So what I want to try to do is to be able to bring a little bit of an understanding of what true aging is in the body, paired with how safe the plasma is. I tell people, not only from young plasma research, but I spent a lot of years as an OB-GYN. I pushed a lot of plasma into a lot of people with a lot of postpartum bleeding. If you've ever seen somebody bleed after having a baby, it's like a gunshot wound. So I've used a ton of plasma, and it's safe. And we have all kinds of data of why it's not a problem. So I want people to understand safety paired with some of what's really happening with aging. And then a big part of my talk is we've been doing it with people. It's no more rats. What did we do? What testing are we doing? What are we seeing with people when we're testing? How sick people are getting better, and how just general longevity. So I think that's a big part of what I want to bring to say this is available now, and we need to start using it. When you get older and you become menopausal, you got to put estrogen back in. So it's the same kind of thing. As you're starting to get aging, you put the plasma back in, and we want to see the effects that we've been getting, so you can stay in front of your health.
Perfect. So what are the current challenges that you see in the field of longevity, super longevity, and how can they be turned potentially into even opportunities?
It's so, that's a really good question. The probably the biggest challenge is that the space is empty in the transition from the medical doctor, either the DO or the MD who applies that, to the actual technology itself, right? So the PhD is in this area trying to come up with things that will help. And yeah, if it comes to supplements, they can use that kind of at a low level. But your young docs that are coming out of training are sort of in this space where they're not thinking about super longevity. They're just trying to get you healthy and get you out the door. So I think the MD space to read the PhD studies and use, like what I try to do, use my 25, 35 years of experience. What happened with women? How does their body change? What is the new literature in menopause and inflammation? So the real opportunity is to be that person in this space that can make it easily understandable to the public and easily understandable to doctors. So internal medicine and clinicians that see people on a day-to-day basis will be able to turn around when somebody turns 40 and say, your aging process is starting. Here's the 4 tests you need to do. Figure out where you are, but let's create more than diet, exercise, sleep, and stress. I mean, I've read everything. I've looked at every paper. I read every book you can imagine, and it keeps coming back to those 4. And I'm not taking that away. I think they're important, but there's got to be something else out there. And I think that's the space that's open. And if you connect that to the real medical community, that's what I can do as an MD. You can connect that to the medical community. That's where there'll be opportunity for success, and you'll start to see real changes, because patients talk to patients. Hey, I did this and I did great. They tell their friend. They tell their friend. So we need a group of people that are going to be able to get into the clinical world to read what the PhDs are doing, see what the technologies are coming out, and turn around and say to a patient, I want you to try this. And that's where it'll go.
So as we wrap up this discussion, are there any final last words, any message that you still want to share with our readers, with our listeners, viewers, but of course also with potential Rajfest attendees?
So I think thinking outside of the box needs to be the new normal. And wherever you are and whatever you're thinking about, it's never too crazy. And I think getting outside of the box, thinking outside of the box, take a step outside, give that a shot. And then a lot of times, then you modify this, you modify that. And the next thing you know, there's new therapy. There's a new way that you can create a more efficient system. You'll build muscle only better. But for me, the whole concept is the box was never a good place to be. And probably because my kids are both dyslexia, we live outside the box. But understand that you're never closed in. You think outside the box, and whatever comes your way that you feel is going to be a resistance or a block, then you can go around it or over it. And there's a whole big world of things left for us to discover.
Thank you so much, Diane.